Hey guys, how's it going? So I've tried filming this video a few times now and I just get passionately overheated and angry. So I'm going to try this in a different manner. I didn't plan on making a video today, but I saw something that I needed to address. The Rewired Soul is ran by this guy named Chris Boutte, and he posted 2 videos about the opioid epidemic and how he feels about Suboxone and Suboxone tapers and Suboxone long-term versus short-term use. His videos were inspired by the deep dive done by Philip DeFranco about the Individualized and Suboxone and the patents and the whole mess that is Big Pharma. So, let's see. Basically, Chris believes that a short-term Suboxone taper is the best way to get off of opioids. And that's his opinion, and that's fine. The problem with his video is he said a lot of things as if they were facts. And he said a lot of things without thinking about the consequences of them. You can have an opinion, that's completely fine. It's not okay for you to come onto YouTube with such a large audience to begin with. You have like 80 or 81,000 subscribers and start talking about the best way. You need to think about keeping recovery as an inclusive thing. You know, you're saying, I'm not knocking Suboxone, I'm not knocking Methadone, but you are. By saying there's nothing like waking up without taking a medication, without being dependent on a medication. Well, first of all, you just said that you take an antidepressant, and SSRIs and SSNRIs also come with a physical dependence. So that's where I want to start. His big thing against Suboxone is that you become dependent on it. You become physically dependent, which is true. But he's saying that doctors are telling you this, or doctors are not telling you this, is what he's saying. And people are unaware of the physical dependence and withdrawal symptoms that come from Suboxone. So let's break that down. Okay, so we're going to talk about 3 things: tolerance, dependence, and addiction. Tolerance is simply not responding to a drug the way that you initially did after prolonged use. Therefore, it requires a larger dose to elicit the same or similar response as it used to. Dependence, physical dependence, is when your neurons adapt to repeated use and only function properly with the drug. So you experience withdrawal without it. And this is because your brain adapts and stops producing the neurotransmitters and chemicals on its own because the drug is doing it for them. And dependence is developed in the thalamus and the brainstem and the pain pathway of the brain, which is separate from the reward pathway, which is where addiction is developed. Addiction is physical dependence, except you can't stop. It completely takes over. Your brain is wired to only function with the drug, and it will do anything and everything to get the drug. Physical dependence does have withdrawal symptoms, like I mentioned, but you can stop taking it. You can do it without the obsessions and compulsive behaviors. There are opiate receptors in different parts of your brain. So they're the ones in the reward pathway, the reward center of your brain, which is where addiction is essentially developed. And then there's ones in the pain pathway, which is like the thalamus, the brainstem, spinal cord area. And that is what gives you the analgesic property. I'm probably saying that wrong. That's what helps with pain. It numbs, it takes the pain away. When the opiate receptors in the reward pathway of your brain are stimulated, that elicits pleasure and euphoria. So it has different functions, it does different things. So buprenorphine is what we're going to be referring to for most of this. Bup is a synthetic opioid that is a partial opioid agonist. There are opioid agonists, full agonists, which is like morphine and heroin. There are partial agonists, which is like buprenorphine. And there are antagonists, which is like naltrexone, Vivitrol, naloxone. And they all serve different functions. They all do different things. So basically, a partial opioid agonist fits into your opioid receptors, much like a full agonist, but it does not elicit the same response. It does enough to stop withdrawal symptoms, it blocks cravings, but it doesn't produce any euphoria. That's so important because he mentioned that a lot of people stay on Suboxone because it gets them kind of high. It does not get you kind of high. It does in opioid naive people, and they shouldn't be taking Suboxone. So it does for people that are abusing the drug. And it's not okay to allow a few bad apples to spoil the bunch in this kind of case. Like, this is a huge tool for harm reduction. This is a huge tool for recovery, and we need to be open and receptive to it. I understand that you don't think people should be on it long term, and that you're more of an abstinence-based approach. Even though you say you're not, you are. Because you want them to just detox and then deal. And the thing is, people can't deal. You just can't. People are dying. The risk is so high. And study after study after study shows that long-term use of Suboxone reports longer periods of abstinence. Let me read some things I wrote down from SAMHSA, and I will link it. It's just some resources they have online for free, but mostly for practitioners. Yeah, your girl took a lot of notes about this because I was heated. So, also, let's start with prescribing doctors are required to provide a written and verbal explanation of what the patient's treatment options are. So they know about all of them. They know about methadone, they should know about Suboxone, they should know about the Vivitrol shots. All of that needs to be communicated in a way that they can comprehend. So it's not just like, here, hand this pamphlet out and let them read it. Like, you need to go over it, and the patient signs that. And if they sign that without asking questions, that's really on them, because they're giving consent. And if they're not asking questions before they just sign their name, what are you doing? Like, this is... Oh, your treatment agreement is there for a reason. It's there so that you can ask questions, know about all your options, decide on what the best option is, agree to take the treatment plan seriously, agree to follow the doctor's instructions, agree to follow up on the other requirements of medication-assisted treatment. Because it's not just medication, it's medication-assisted. So that means it's only part of it. It's a long-term therapy, long-term social skills, long-term everything. Like, I'm getting heated. Let me calm down. So, SAMHSA says something along the lines of, do not judge progress and success on the amount of medication a patient takes or how long they've been on the medication. Rather, gauge it on the patient's ability to achieve specific goals that were predetermined in the beginning of treatment. It's about the recovery. It's not about the medication. The detox, it's such a small part of your recovery. Like, I can't understand this. So in 3 weeks, what do you accomplish in your recovery? Not a hell of a lot. Like, you're going to be lucky if anything. You might find a therapist in the first 3 weeks. That's about it. Suboxone blocks cravings and it just makes you feel normal. There's no high. I don't even wake up feeling sick. Yes, I'm physically dependent on Suboxone. I'm fully aware of that. But because of the long half-life and the ceiling effect of the medication, I don't ever get to a point where I feel like shit before I take the medicine. So a ceiling effect means that above a certain dosage, the effects do not increase. You can take more and more and more, but it really doesn't do anything. So Dr. Junig proposes that this ceiling effect is at 4 milligrams. So let's just assume that at 4 milligrams, effects don't go any higher. They don't increase. But the half-life is 37 hours. So say you're taking an 8 milligram dose. As time goes on and that medicine is excreted from your body, the level of Suboxone or buprenorphine in your bloodstream will decrease. But the effects will not change until you get lower than that 4 milligram ceiling effect. Suboxone does not need to be increased over time. In fact, most people decrease their dosage over time because it's just needed less. And the ceiling effect, I feel like, is more individualized, and with long-term use, your ceiling effect is probably lower. It's my personal opinion. I can't back that part by science, but I strongly feel like it because I need less and less as time goes on. And also, it's like you're talking about delaying the pain, and you're not... I don't know. I don't understand. I don't understand why you would say something that sounds so against Suboxone, but also say, I'm not bashing Suboxone, I'm not anti-Suboxone, but this is the best way to do it, and that's not. That's how it comes across. It comes across as if you feel like people in long-term treatment are not doing, they're just not doing it. We're avoiding the pain, we're prolonging the pain that is so important to recovery, apparently. The detox, the withdrawals. Except you can do it in a very slow and controlled manner and minimize them to almost nothing, but still work on your recovery at the same time. I just don't get it. I just truly don't get it. My message is this. There is no right way to recover. There is no one-size-fits-all approach. There is no best way for everyone. There is a best way for you, and it's up to you to determine what that is. Even SAMHSA says that the duration of treatment is up to the individual patient. It's not the doctor's decision. The doctor might recommend you start with a goal in mind, like achieve these goals within 6 months in the psychosocial therapy part of this, and then we'll reassess your medication and then look at a taper. But they shouldn't say you're going to be in treatment for 6 months. You're going to be in treatment for 2 to 3 years. You're going to be in treatment for the rest of your life. Treatment duration is truly up to the individual. And you can't know that until you go into treatment and until you do it. Now, the Vivitrol shot, I know that's something that he talked about. I don't have much experience with it, but I do know that it is reported to reduce cravings. It is not reported to work as efficiently as Suboxone or buprenorphine at reducing cravings. And it has a high risk of overdose because your opioid tolerance is reduced drastically. I have a couple friends, and actually this makes me think of another point. So I have a couple friends who have taken the Vivitrol shot. I have one that took it and he overdosed and died. And I have another one that literally counts down the days until he needs to get his next shot to see if he has this small window of time that he can get high. And he has to take large amounts of drugs in order to feel anything. And that's at the end of the month. So yes, it blocks the effects, but like when it doesn't block it, your tolerance is super low, and that's how people die often. Now, I just used an example where I have a couple friends, and it's a handful of friends that have had Vivitrol shots, but I don't have any personal experience. And I need you to understand that me knowing those handful of people does not mean I know everything about every person on Vivitrol shots. That's confirmation bias. Every person I know in long-term Suboxone use says they wish they hadn't done it. It doesn't work like that. That's not how it works. Yeah, that might be true for your friends. And I'm sorry that they're in a position where they're not happy with their recovery. But I'm happy on long-term Suboxone use. I know a bunch of people that are. So there are people on both sides of the story here. Overdose rates drop by 50% when MAT is involved. 50%. With the variables in the dope and like fentanyl, you don't know if that stuff's going to kill you these days. A relapse is so risky. Another thing that SAMHSA said, due to the chronic nature of opioid use disorder and the potentially fatal consequences of a relapse, it is critical that you base the patient's length of time in treatment on their individual needs. People are dying. People are dying, and you're out here telling them to just get detox and they'll be okay. Do a 2 to 3 week Suboxone taper does work. And it shows that people are not going to stay abstinent long term if they do that. So why don't we allow them to get on medication and let them decide what works for them instead of telling them what we think is best? That's unethical. It's really unethical to say that to your subscriber base. We need to focus on an inclusive approach to recovery. And yes, I heard you when you said you are not anti-Suboxone, but I don't know if you heard the message that came through in your video. It was not pro-Suboxone long-term. So you can't say I'm pro-Suboxone short-term and not long-term when science doesn't agree with you, first of all. And it's just not ethical. You can't say there's no one size fits all. There's no one way to recover. by saying anything like that. Like, it's the freedom I experienced waking up without a substance, but yet you take an antidepressant, which has physical dependence effects. Okay, all right, sorry guys. I'm getting heated. If you want to discuss this more, I would love to. I just want you to understand that recovery needs to be inclusive. You can have an opinion, and that's fine. But you need to understand that when you say things, and when you have an audience, a large audience, you need to know your influence. I'm not a medical professional. I can't give you advice like your doctor can. But you can have these conversations with your doctor. You can ask them about short-term versus long-term. You can ask them why you're still on it or what they think. You just need to talk to your doctor. That's truly what matters the most here. And detox, withdrawal, it's a small, minuscule, microscopic, itty-bitty, teeny tiny part of your recovery journey. Don't get hung up on it. It's okay to take the long taper in a controlled, safe manner. The risk of overdose is so much lower. Also, you don't get high on Suboxone. All right, I love you guys. I will see you tomorrow. And please don't send hate to the Rewired Soul. Seriously, that is not my intention. I would rather have an open discussion with him and talk about this stuff instead of sending hate or talking crap on him as a person. I really hope that I abstain from doing that in this video. I know that I get passionate about Suboxone, but I don't want to attack him as a person. That's not who I am, and that's not what I stand for. So I love you guys. Stay safe. I will see you tomorrow. Bye.